Okay, so how's it going? I'm gonna share some thoughts on the latest Avengers movie, Infinity War. I'm excited for Infinity War Part 2. So I guess one of the big things is this is directed by the Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe Russo. I'm gonna say Russo. They directed The Winter Soldier and Civil War, the last two, the second and third Captain America movies, which I think were among the best Marvel movies. So that's that's the thing. Predicting whether a movie is going to be good or not is often, I think, not that hard. It's one of the main things is just the director. Who's the director? Is it Christopher Nolan? Then it's going to be awesome. Is it Denis Villeneuve? Like with Blade Runner 2049, it's probably going to be good. The Russo brothers, they're making really good movies. I guess one of the awesome things about this is just the number of characters and the way they all get to play, or many of them, and maybe not just play a significant role, but they get to show off their powers. They get to interact in cool ways. It's very creative. The comedy is really, really well done. I think it's probably the best Marvel movie or up there. So yeah, it's hard to know where to start. I guess it's just overall it's just firing on all cylinders. The special effects are really good. You could tell there's a big budget and they use it well. The characters all seem true to themselves. They, like I said, a lot of them get really good comedy moments, and they also get really good character moments, and get to show off their powers. Most of them. One of the really cool things is the Guardians of the Galaxy, because they've been kind of separate so far. I think the first Guardians is one of the best Marvel movies as well. Really, really, I really liked that one. Yeah, here they get to play really cool. They're pretty prominent. They play a lot in terms of they do a lot of the comic relief. I really one of my favorite Some of my favorite lines are from them, like when they say, where is Gamora? And Iron Man's like, I'll do you one better. Who is Gamora? And then Drax, complete idiot, not understanding what's going on at all, is like, I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora? That just, there were parts like that where you're laughing and then you'd miss the next couple of lines. And the part where Mantis, like Iron Man asks him, like, what do you guys do anyway? Who are you? And Mantis is like, what was it? Kicking names and taking ass. And Drax is like, yes, yes. And it's just an awkward silence. I really like that. But yeah, characters like Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Star-Lord, they're all pretty prominently featured. They get to do so much. All of them get a chance to kind of fight Thanos a bit and show off their powers. Like the part with Doctor Strange, and he's like turns into all the copies, and then uses some, I don't even know what's going on, and he's like manipulating reality. All that stuff is very cool. Of course, I don't know why he doesn't use the time stone, but there is the part where he's looking at all the futures. That's kind of interesting. 14 million and 5 or something. I forget what the number is. So I guess in theory, he's only letting things happen in a way that's going to help the good guys win, right? You would assume. But it's also kind of funny. I don't know if people understand how combinatorials work, combinations and probability. It doesn't take, like, in terms of, I don't have that many clothes, but if you consider how many shirts I've got, how many pants or shorts, how many jumpers and jackets and shoes and socks, the number of my possible outfits that I could wear, just with my very modest collection of clothes, it would be in the millions of millions. I'd say, at least millions of millions. I'd say, like, let's say, because you got to keep in mind you've got like 30 shirts, you've got like 10 different pairs of pants, 15 different pairs of socks. I've only got 3 or 4 pairs of shoes. That might be a slight exaggeration for me because I don't have that many. But if you add on other things like I could wear a watch or not wear a watch, I could, I don't know, I might have 1 pair of sunglasses or have 1 or 2 hats. You add times all of those numbers together, it gets very big. So the idea that Doctor Strange has looked at 14 million, it's not clear exactly how, like, there's a lot of little choices that very quickly could add to a lot more than 14 million. And also Vision is in it, and the Scarlet Witch, I think she's very cool. I think that's her name. Scarlett Johansson's also very cool. I felt like Captain America and Bucky, I wanted them to be in it more. Captain America does do a fair bit. I don't like his new shield. I get that maybe he's kind of like Nomad now or something from the comic books. I don't really know all the details, but I get that. I don't mind if characters change, but just the new shield doesn't seem cool. Black Panther's kind of cool, and Wakanda. I have to comment though with Wakanda. Like, there's a few things that are funny. See, there's a reason. I watched Black Panther as well. I should review that, but they're holding like spears and they got these kind of tribal outfits. That's fine, but like, there's a reason we don't see that in with advanced civilizations. You know. See, I think as people become civilized, they lose a lot of that old traditional sort of stuff. You know, it goes by the wayside. So it's not like. So I think some people get confused. They look at like sort of Europe or white people as being, but the thing is, there isn't really a white culture, you know. So when people talk about acting white, right, that's a phrase that comes up with some people. What they really mean is acting civilized, you know. Like, for example, my favorite music is like a lot of classical music, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Mozart, you know. I like John Williams, he's American. A lot of these, you know, a lot of movies I like are from America. A lot of my favorite music, like popular music, is either American or maybe British, like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin. But then also things like hip hop, I really like that, and that's mostly black people in certain places in America. Blues and jazz, largely started by black people, I think. Rock and roll, Chuck Berry was one of them. But these things all evolve. It involves so many people. And I don't limit myself. It's not like I have a white culture. I'm one of many people in modern Western nations that is not part of a specific culture. It's just, I like everything. You know, I have to work, I have to learn about history and geography, go to school, and then you get a job and you enjoy music and art and books from all over the place. Dostoevsky's Russian, but his books get translated to English and they're considered, you know, among the best books of all time and that kind of thing. So meanwhile, I get that there are people that have other cultures that have been around for a long time, like Italians might have the traditions, and the Irish, and people in Africa have the tribal things, like Aboriginals have their music and other specific art, but a lot of those things are really kind of specific, and a lot of them are not that, you know, compared to the much broader, like, classical music and popular music and literature that has reached across the world, that has stood the test of time. It's very different. Like, there's no comparison. Those kind of traditional types of things tend to be very limited, I find. Like, Aboriginal music is just like so limited compared to Western music, like classical music. All these different composers that were pushing the boundaries and writing for full orchestras, writing sonatas, they could play multiple instruments, all of that. Anyway. Point is, as the people become civilized, they lose a lot of those old things, and that's the thing. These Africans that in Wakanda, they all have this kind of traditional outfits. It doesn't make any sense. You lose that stuff once you become civilized and then use modern weapons. And yeah, why do they have spears? And the chants they do. There's a reason modern armies don't go wacha hoo hoo, wacha hoo hoo, or whatever, you know. Because it's silly. It's just a silly chant. Anyway, it's got nothing to do with like skin color or with like Africa and other places. It's to do with being civilized. You lose that stuff. Anyway, there's a few things with that battle. Like those space dogs, I think someone called them, that are coming. It did make sense that Black Panther said to open a small section. I think that is logical, to try to attract them in one area so you could attack them. But one of the dumbest parts, there's a War Machine, I think, is like shooting, but he bombs on the inside. It would have made way more sense for him and maybe Falcon to go fly outside and then bomb them before they even get in, because there's a whole clump of those things trying to get in. He could have started bombing them. Boom, 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 boom. It's also unclear in these kinds of movies, like, why don't they use more serious weapons? Like, it's very strange seeing Winter Soldier. He's using a machine gun. And the raccoon. Raccoon. What's his name? I think he's called Rocket. Thor calls him Rabbit. Those parts with Thor are very funny. Like, they're both using machine guns. It kind of just, it's confusing when everyone else is, like, using a spear or, like, some kind of shield. It's like, why don't you just all use guns? Are you serious? It would be so much more effective. Like, it feels like that part, you could just have a modern army, like a normal human. The US Army could just kill those space dogs before they arrived. So what do you need all these? And then Scarlet Witch has insane powers. And I love that line with the black girl. I forget. I don't know her name. I don't know all the characters' names from all the movies. But she's like, why was she up there for all this time? You know? Anyway, let's move on. I do like those other bad guys that help Thanos. The four grey. They look cool. They're kind of big, larger than life. Look weird. I think the special effects generally hold up. They have a presence. I really find it funny that one of them gets called Squidward. I think that's hilarious. And the way he just has powers, could just like something gets thrown at him and he just cuts it in half and then he can just like shift himself. The way he's fighting Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and Iron Man very quickly and effortlessly is very cool. There's so many lines I like as well, like when Iron Man is like, come on, do your Hulk thing, and he's like, it's not working. It's like, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards. It's just all that dialogue between Iron Man and Doctor Strange is hilarious, And he's like, well, what do you do? I protect reality, douchebag. Something like that. It's just out of left field. You don't expect it. It's hilarious. And there's so many other things to talk about. The parts with Star-Lord and Gamora are quite moving and kind of heartbreaking. That's really tricky. Like the fact that she says she knows something that Thanos needs, that you gotta kill me. And then he tries to kill her, and it's like, it's bubbles. It just, it's brutal. Just even the concept of a bad guy who's that much more powerful than everyone and is just taking stone by stone is crazy. It's very exciting. I remember when I saw it at the cinemas, there was a girl next to me who was just in shock. Like, at every moment, it just kind of enhanced everything. Because she was like, if any character was threatened, she's like, oh, no, like you just, because it is kind of epic. You sense these movies of, I don't know how many they've done, 15 or so or more. They've really built up these characters. Captain America's been in at least 3 movies, or I guess plus the Avengers movies. Iron Man and Hulk, they've all, they've got these histories. You can't just have them killed. So when they're being threatened, it's like, It's very smart, by the way, with Loki being killed near the start. I think that was a good way to really establish. It's kind of cool because he was the villain in the first Avengers movie as well. So this is kind of like saying this villain's much more powerful, much stronger, smarter, much more of a serious threat. And it's just nice, like a kind of dark opening and seeing how big Thanos is and the way he then just fights Hulk. And it's like, yeah, you're like, Hulk gets him and you're like, come on, we got a chance here. And, the other beggars, they're like, let him have his fun. And then he just kind of gets up, grabs Hulk, and you're like, oh my god. And it just, fights him and, beats him. In the commentary, they mentioned he probably didn't even use the Power Stone. He's just able to overpower the Hulk and out fight him. And then I guess maybe in part because of that, the Hulk's scared to come out again. Or just, there seems to be a conflict where he doesn't want to just play hero for Bruce Banner, so they need to work something out. It's interesting. I guess Thor's transformation is pretty cool, although I found like the science is just really stupid. It's just fantasy, I guess, but it's just kind of silly. This star, what is this thing? And like somehow they power it by turning it on again, and I don't know, whatever. And then the way he's like, I'll hold it open. Like you can't find anything mechanical. Like you can't attach a cable to each side and use the ship to like somehow hold it open or something. Why does someone have to stand there? And of course he nearly dies, but then Groot cuts off his arm. And alright, it's when he arrives at Wakanda, that's epic. That's very cool. I think everyone likes that part. He just starts destroying lots of them. And of course when he attacks Thanos, the ending is just brutal. Like, he gets hit here and, you should have hit me in the head. And, no, what have you done? Like, it's messed up. And seeing all the characters, of course, turn to dust more than you expect. And especially it's quite uneven. Pretty much most of the original Avengers survive. And a lot of the newer ones die, including the Guardians, most of the Guardians. It's messed up. And that's what it's meant to be, I guess. It's meant to be just you feel sick, you kind of feel like in Star Wars when Obi-Wan kind of feels like, millions of voices suddenly silence when they destroy Alderaan or whatever, There were other cool things, like when Thanos got each of the stones, he kind of used it at least once, so we got to see what it's like. I should discuss Thanos' worldview because it's funny. This seems to be a really common thing. I just saw part of a movie called Downsizing recently, and it's seemed to imply like, oh, by shrinking people down, people will take less space. So it's a lot of people seem to believe that there's some kind of limited resources and that over the overpopulation is a fear, a rational fear. But it makes no sense. I think people need to understand, like, there's places like Japan, like Tokyo, Hong Kong, I'm trying to think, a lot of famous cities that are very, very densely populated, and they're amongst the richest places in the world, where you have millions of people living at first world standards. They're living, very well. And you've got other places like, I think there are some countries in Africa, I forget which ones, which are actually have overall a very low population density, and they're among the poorest places. So, being densely populated doesn't make you rich or poor. Rich or poor tends to depend on other things, like how much are people working. That often depends on the economic system. When people have private property and freedom, it's in their interest to work and to trade. When you have a socialist government, it tends to be much harder to get people to actually work, because why would they work if the government takes everything, and you're going to get things anyway, whether you work or not. So I think socialism tends to cause a lot of problems, but it's also skills. There are places where people just have not developed the skills. America went from poor to rich, if from the 1700s to like the 1800s, 1900s, not by other people giving them money and not by colonizing other places. They mainly just stayed in their own country, but by trading, by having freedom and capitalism, people develop skills. I don't know if people understand this, and as the population gets bigger, usually countries get richer, they get better off, right? And often as countries get larger, people start having less kids as they start, having a higher level of living. If anything, there have been fears in some places that their populations are going to go down, that they need to start having more kids. Anyway, so overpopulation is just kind of a myth. It's been around since like 1798. A guy called Thomas Malthus was pushing it. He had this idea that population's going to rise exponentially, geometrically, and food is only going to rise linearly, arithmetically, like not as fast. So you'd get too many people and not enough food. But that would tend to adjust anyway, and it's mistaken. He was wrong. That was in 1798, and there's less starvation overall now than there was back then. So things have gotten better. One important way which a larger population tends to be better, first of all, yes, you're going to have more mouths to feed, but you're also going to have more hands that can work. But one of the things that is different, more people means potentially more variety of skills and more chance for you to have those one-off, really clever geniuses that can change, that can innovate the world. Again, in a capitalist society, you're more likely to get innovation because it pays off, because people want to invest there. They have more chance of making a fortune for themselves without stealing from anyone, but by satisfying customers. Whereas in a socialist place, it's harder for ideas to spread. It's harder for new ideas to be tried. But anyway, let's look at Thanos. So his idea is to kill half of everyone to try and solve the problem. It's insane. And of course, what's the cost? So you're going to murder half the people? That's completely immoral. It's also questionable. How often is he going to do this? Is this a periodic thing, or is it a one-off? Like, then just everything's perfect. It's just stupid. I don't know. I don't think there's any example, again, in real life where killing a whole bunch of people helped. Usually it tends to cause more problems. I know in just one example, in Indonesia, the people from China emigrated to Indonesia and also to Malaysia and some other places. And in many cases, those Chinese were not just random people. They were people that, mostly men, I think initially, who chose to go to these places to start businesses, to work hard, to save, send money back to their families, maybe in some cases bring their families. Anyway, they started a lot of the got a lot of the industries going in these places, and of course the local people, either in Malaysia or Indonesia, would oppose them and then just try to set up laws. In some cases, there'd be massacres would break out, or they'd kick out the Chinese. But most of the time, it caused problems because it was the Chinese that had developed the skills, that had developed the economy, and so when you kicked them out, the economy started going down again. So it's just this very silly idea that the way to help people is to get rid of. It goes back for a long time. The same with the Nazis blamed the Jews for their bringing down our society. Their socialists tend to blame capitalists, which for the same reasons as the Nazis blamed the Jews. It's the same thing. They're all anti-capitalist. They don't like people who actually earn money, and little do they seem to understand that those people are the ones that are making your economy work. But anyway, and Thanos, it's the same thing. He wants to kill half the people. That's going to kill half the work that gets done. It's not, the world doesn't have a limited number of resources. The world has like a lot of stuff, and a lot of the best stuff we have now was created by people. The more people you have, the more chances you have to develop those things and find ways to use what exists and come up with brand new things. Oil wasn't a resource until we figured out how to use it. Nuclear energy wasn't a resource until we figured out how to use it. And we're not using those things as much as we could. But anyway, I know Ben Shapiro pointed out, and I agreed, I already thought of it myself, that Thanos just needs to watch some Thomas Sowell videos, and then he would realize, right. That's what people need. People just need, free markets where they can exchange, where it's in their interest to trade and to work hard and, figure out ways to feed everyone and to get things done. Killing people is not going to help. It's not like, all of a sudden now there's enough stuff. Plus, it's really unfair. What about all the family members of those people? Are they going to feel good? What about all the side effects after that? But yeah, anyway, I should try to wrap it up. The action is very cool in this movie. It's very epic. It's very bold. The Russo brothers do a very good job. The comedy is really good. I like the bad guys. For me, the plot holes, if any, are not too big. They're forgivable. Like, I do feel like there's a line where I think Captain America says we don't trade lives, and they're talking, I guess, about Vision. They're taking the thing out. I just wish it was a bit clearer. Can we take it out without killing him, yes or no? And if it stops Thanos, like, yes, it is worth it. If it's going to save, 50% of the entire universe was killed, it would have been worth, especially if Vision was willing to do it. I don't know if you can force him. That's a bit immoral. But if he said, look, kill me, destroy it, let's do it, then you say yes, right? I absolutely would have been like that. You might say, okay, that's not our first priority. I get that they go to Wakanda, but it ended up, and of course eventually she does destroy it, and that's where it's just so messed up, and then he uses the time to go back. Oh my god, that was just like, watching that, you think, you could feel... I'm really curious to see what they do next. I'm so excited. I hope they've saved the best for last, or at least that they've got some really cool things ready. Captain Marvel is coming out. I don't know if that movie will be good, but I think it'll be very cool to see another character. And she's meant to be one of the most powerful, and she'll be helping, I guess, because of the after-credit scene, or mid-credit scene. I really liked with the intro of the Guardians, like it just said space. It's so general, and just they all have music, and Teen Groot is like, I am Groot, and they're like, whoa. And Drax is so funny the whole movie, like he's just watching, and they're like, how long have you been there? An hour. And coming from him, he's just telling the truth. Like, he's just been standing there an hour, and he's like, you can't see me. And then she's like, Mantis is like, hey Drax. He's like, damn it. I also really liked his lines with Thor. It's like a pirate bred with an angel, or mixed with an angel or something. And he's like, no, this is not a dude. You are a dude. This is a man. I also liked how Star-Lord really was kind of cool in this movie. Like, he did that really stupid thing where he punched Thanos, and that's like insane. That's like, you could have stopped it. That's the tragic. Like, they really got the glove off. I kind of feel like it's possible, even if he hadn't have done that. I don't know that they could have stopped him. Like, even if they got the glove off, it's possible when that came off, things would have shifted, and then he would get power back again, and then fight them, and then get the thing back on. Like, it's hard to say, but it was really stupid, a stupid move. But other than that, I thought it was kind of cool that Star-Lord kind of beat Iron Man, and he kind of beat Spider-Man, and then like outsmarting them. Like, he would kind of just jump over them and throw a thing on them and activate it. I really like the coat of Doctor Strange as well. It's like it's, you know, what is it? What does he call it? Death carpet or death death blanket? But yeah, I don't have much else to add. I mean, it's kind of stupid that again Thanos and they're killing half the people and trying to justify it. Like he mentions balance, it's such a terrible example. You know, you balance some things in life, but it's not always. First off, it's not always 50-50, right? There are many things where the balance is, you know, like I was trying to think. You have to go to the toilet sometimes, right? But you don't spend 50% of your life going to the toilet. And you need to sleep, but you don't spend 50% of your life sleeping necessarily. There's lots of things that are good to do at least a bit. It's a bad idea to do it not at all. But that doesn't mean you do it 50% of the time, right? You might do it some small percentage of the time. Like reading. Reading's good. You know, if you don't do any reading, that's probably not as good. But you don't have to spend 50% of your life doing it. And the other thing is there are some things the best balance is none at all. When it comes to drinking poison, don't drink it at all. In my opinion, for some things like drinking alcohol and doing drugs, for me, the best amount is none at all. For others, they do it a bit. That's fine. But yeah, so the idea that it's vague. He doesn't even explain how balance relates to killing half the people. You are doing that against their will. You're not giving them a choice. So it's completely immoral. But anyway, of course he's evil, and you know it is interesting at least to see how he's justifying his thoughts, and then to see how you know the heroes try to fight against him. And yeah, it's very epic, very and successful. It's not perfect. I don't think it's as deep as a lot of like Nolan's Batman trilogy and some other superhero movies here and there, but it's one of the best. Very, very good. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. Okay, bye.